Hello my little friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shamily and I'm doing Animal Crossing videos, so if you'd like to see more, consider subscribing and don't forget to like the video because it really does help my channel a lot. Today we are back on Felmenora, my Springcore island mixed with fairy tales, and I wanted to focus on my river mouth with a build inspired by Jack and the Beanstalk. So while I'm terraforming and building, let me tell you about this tale. Once upon a time, there lived a widow woman and her son, Jack, on their small farm in the country. Every day, Jack would help his mother with the chores, chopping the wood, weeding the garden, and milking the cow. But despite all of that, Jack and his mother were very poor, with barely enough money to keep themselves fed. "What shall we do?" said the widow one spring day. "We don't have enough money to buy seed from the farm this year. We must sell our cow, Old Bess, and with the money, buy enough seed to plant a good crop." "Alright, mother," said Jack. "It is market day today, and I'll go into town and sell Bessie." Jack took the cow's halter in his hand and walked through the garden, headed off towards town. He hadn't gone far when he met a funny-looking old man who said to him, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning to you," said Jack, wondering how the little old man knew his name. "Where are you off to this morning?" asked the man. "I'm going to the market to sell our cow Bessie." "Well, what an helpful son you are," exclaimed the man. "I have a special deal for such a good boy like you." The little old man looked around to make sure no one was watching and then opened his hand to show Jack what he held. "Beans?" asked Jack, a little confused. "3 magical bean seed, to be exact, young man. So magical they are that if you plant them overnight, by morning they grow right up to the sky," promised the funny little man. "And because you're such a good boy, they're all yours in trade for that old milking cow." "Really?" said Jack. "And you're quite sure they're magical?" "I am indeed. And if it doesn't turn out to be true, you can have your cow back." "Well, that sounds fair," said Jack as he handed over Bessie's halter, pocketed the beans, and headed back home to show his mother. "Back already, Jack?" asked his mother. "I see you haven't got Old Bess. You've sold her quickly. How much did you get for her?" Jack smiled and reached into his pocket. "Just look at these beans, mother. They're magical. Plant them overnight and..." "What?" cried Jack's mother. "Oh, silly boy! How could you give away our milking cow for 3 measly beans?" And then she started to burst into tears. Jen ran upstairs to his little room in the attic and threw the beans angrily out the window, thinking, "How could I have been so foolish? I've broken my mother's heart." And after much tossing and turning, at least Jack dropped off to sleep. When Jack woke up the next morning, his room looked strange. The sun was shining, part of it like it normally did, and yet all the rest was quite dark and shady. So Jack jumped and get dressed himself and went to the window. The beans had thrown out the window to the garden, had sprung into a beanstalk, which went up and up and up until it reached the sky. Using the leaves and twisty vines like the rungs of a ladder, Jack climbed and climbed until at last he reached the sky. And when he got there, he found a long, broad road winding its way through the clouds to a tall, square castle off in the distance. Jack ran up the road towards the castle, and just as he reached it, the door swung open to reveal a horrible giant lady with one great eye in the middle of her forehead. As soon as Jack saw her, he turned to run away, but she caught him and dragged him into the castle. Don't be such a hurry. I'm sure a growing boy like you would like such a nice breakfast, said the big tall woman. It's been so long since I got to make breakfast for a boy. Well, the giant lady wasn't such a bad sort after all, even if she was a bit odd. She took Jack into the kitchen and gave him a chunk of cheese and a glass of milk. But Jack had only taken a few bites when, pom, 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 the whole house began to tremble with the noise of someone coming. Goodness gracious me, it's my husband, she said, wringing her hands. What on earth shall I do? There's nothing he likes better than boy's blood on a toast, and I haven't any bread left. Oh dear, I should never have let you stay for breakfast. Here, come quick, jump in here. And she hurried Jack into a large copper pot, sitting beside the stove just as her husband, the giant, came in. He ducked inside the kitchen and said, I'm ready for breakfast. I'm so hungry I could eat 3 cows. Huh? What is it I smell? A fresh boy from my bread. Nonsense, dear, said his wife. We haven't had a boy for breakfast in years. Now you go and wash up. By the time you come back, your breakfast will be ready. So the giant went off to tidy up. Jack was about to make a run for it when the woman stopped him. Wait until he's asleep, she said. He always has a little snooze after breakfast. Jack peeked out of the copper pot just as the giant returned to the kitchen, carrying a basket filled up with golden eggs and a silky-looking white hen. The giant poked the hen and growled, Lay! And the hen laid an egg made of gold, which the giant added to the basket. After he had breakfast, the giant went to the closet and pulled out a golden harp with the face of a sad young girl. The giant poked the harp and growled, Play! And the harp began to play a gentle tune while her lovely face sang a lullaby. When the giant began to nod his head to snore until the house shook. Then, when it was quite sure the giant was asleep, Jack crept out of the copper pot and began to tiptoe out of the kitchen. When he was about to leave, he heard the sound of the harp girl weeping. Jack bit his lip, sighed, and returned to the kitchen. He grabbed the silky hen and the singing harp and began to tiptoe back out, but this time when he gave a crackle which woke the giant. Just as Jack got out of the house, he heard him calling, Wife! Wife! What have you done with my white hen and my golden harp? Jack ran as fast as he could, and the giant, realizing he had been tricked, came rushing after, away from the castle and down the broad, winding road. When he got to the beanstalk, the giant was only 20 yards away when suddenly he saw Jack disappear. Confused, the giant peered through the clouds and saw Jack underneath, climbing down for dear life. The giant stomped his foot, roared angrily. He swung himself down onto the beanstalk, which shook with his weight. Jack slipped, slid, and climbed down the beanstalk as quickly as he could, and after him climbed the giant. As he neared the bottom, Jack called out, Mother! Mother! Please hurry! Bring me an axe! And his mother came rushing out with Jack's wood-chopping axe in her hand. But she came to the enormous beanstalk. She stood, shocked, still with fright. Jack jumped down, got hold of the axe, began to chop away the beanstalk. Luckily, because of all the chores he'd done over the years, he'd become quite good at chopping, and it didn't take long for him to chop through enough of the beanstalk that it began to tatter. The giant felt the beanstalk shake and quiver, so he stopped to see what was the matter. Then Jack gave one last big chop with the axe, and the beanstalk began to topple over. Then the giant fell down and broke his crown. The beanstalk came toppling after. The singing harp thanked Jack for rescuing her from the giant. And with a bit of patience and his mother's help, it didn't take long for Jack to get the silky hand back in good health, and the grateful hand continued to lay a fresh golden egg every day. Jack used the money from selling the golden eggs to buy back old Bess, purchase seed for the spring crop, and fix his mother's farm. And so they all lived happily ever after. With this amazing transition of Ellie, who came to help for the builds with bringing me vines. Thank you so much, bestie. We are gonna comment back on the builds because I have some stuff to say. First of all, yeah, you saw all the giant vines and vines benches that I used during this build. I used also this amazing cloud designs to symbolize that the vine was going up in the air, and I will post the Twitter of the creator in the description because it's an amazing design. And I also used some mom's cushion because I thought they could be a nice addition to be little clouds hanging around with like a little bit more layout and texture than just a design patterns. And then I wanted to have the bottom part of the builds very farmy, of course, very natural with like flowers and a little picnic area, but I also wanted to have the hay and the areas because I wanted to symbolize the farm, which was a big part of the story, where the bottom part of actually the story take part. And then I also added some little bean items to symbolize those magical beans that have been tossed around in the garden, and I really love this. And then, as you just saw, I was trying to also add a lot of vines around the cliff to kind of hide this and make it really viney, like you would climb. I also added some ladders to really add to this impression, but sadly the vines doesn't go everywhere because of the objects. And I also added the golden axe, of course, to chop the beanstalk once the giant will come down, and hopefully he will not attack Felmenora. And then don't mind this weird spot, but I'm planning on having stairs later, but this is gonna be like the beaches are always for the end, and I really wanted to wait to see if I have enough stairs, so this is work in progress for later. But if you like this build, don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more fairy tales slash Animal Crossing builds, I guess. I hope you had a lovely time with me. And if you click the little bell button, you will get notification whenever I'm posting videos or whenever I'm streaming, which is super handy if you don't want to know my schedule by heart. But just in case, it is also posted in my Discord and in my community tab, so you have all the information over there. Thank you so much for being there, and see you in another video. Bye!